Hey guys, I am genuinely surprised how well DSM 7 ran on the Synology DS120J. We are talking about a NAS that is a dual-core 800MHz ARM 32-bit processor and half a gig of memory. So please enjoy this video, and do know that although it is a modest NAS and DSM 7 is probably not ideally designed for it, it does a banging job running this software. None of the other videos got this intro. I'm adding this intro because it genuinely surprised me how well it ran it, and I hope you enjoy this video. Let's roll that intro. Hello and welcome back, and we're continuing our look at how well different NASes run DSM 7. If you didn't watch part 1 where we looked at the DS120J, nice and simple, what we've been doing is getting a range of the latest generation of Synology NASes that use different processors, and we're seeing how well it runs the DSM 7 RC version. That's the release candidate, which is pretty much the preamble. It's the silver right there up until we get the full release very soon. So we're going to be measuring DSM 7 performance today on the DS120J. The box is empty because the unit is set up over there, and we're going to be looking at the following: how responsive it is in control panel and file station, how well it performs in Synology Photos, how well it performs in audio station and video station, and finally surveillance. We're going to be testing DSM 7 on this system to see how well it does, but I will also add that the DS120J arrives with 512 megabytes of memory, with DSM 7 having a recommended 1 gig of memory for optimal use. So even though Synology have released a version of DSM 7 for this system, they themselves have highlighted that DSM 7 runs at its best with 1 gig of memory in this RC version, so do bear that in mind. But let's see how well DSM 7 runs on the 120J, and hopefully this might save you from installing the application yourself and then realizing you can't roll back to 6.2 at all. Let's make our way over to the DS120J. Right, so here we are on the desktop of our DS120J. Of all the NASes that I'm going to be testing DSM 7 on, the DS120J is the one that I've looked forward to the most, simply because the minute I saw that Synology had a version of DSM 7 for their DS120J, all I was thinking was, how on earth is this system going to run it? I mean, let's face it, if you go through the specifications and the supported models that they do have on their listing, you can see that they go pretty low. The DS115J, for example, is a single core 800 megahertz NAS with 256 megabytes of memory, and there is a version of DSM 7 for that NAS. So technically, this is actually more powerful than that. But still, nonetheless, I was really surprised, particularly given that Synology themselves do raise that if your model has less than 1 gig of memory, it may affect system performance. And this is a NAS that arrives with half a gig of memory. So bear in mind that this is not an ideal scenario I'm running here. Talking about non-ideal scenarios, if you have watched the other videos, one of the big problems I've got right now is I'm recording this on Saturday, the 12th of June. A very warm day here in the UK, and I work by the seaside, and right now I am combating sounds such as seagulls on the roof, the noise of a considerable number of NASes in my local area environment while I record these videos, because I'll be away for a week after this. And on top of that, outside there are people playing steel drums. I mean, it's like the world is conspiring for this. The other thing I was going to highlight is originally I was going to let this 120J do all of the indexing, everything it needed to do. But unfortunately, it was going to take just too long. And rather than you guys having to wait another week, possibly a week and a half until I'm able to record this video, I thought I would do this now, show you guys a little walkthrough of just how DSM 7 runs without the indexing running. I've let it index a bit, a few hundred photos, for example, but this is going to give you some idea about how DSM 7 runs on this system. I've paused the indexing there, and if we go into the resource monitor, you're going to be able to see that resources, even when this is just lightly used, are being consumed quite highly. In the system's defense, I have installed quite a lot of applications, and as you can see there, quite a lot of processes are running on this system. So still, nonetheless, although CPU utilization on this dual-core processor is arguably a little high, this CPU and half a gig of memory is still keeping the system going. As you can see, it's the 120J. We're running DSM 7. We've done remote access there, but we are using it on an IP. As you can see, it is a 2-core Marvell Armada. That's 32-bit ARM processor, 800 megahertz, not even a gigahertz, and half a gig of memory. So again, as you can see there, we are using a system that is incredibly modest to run this pretty cutting-edge graphical user interface and service. But before we go any further, you would want to see how quickly we can sign in. So let's sign out of the NAS. And what we're going to do is see how quickly DSM 7 logs us in, because as we've discussed in the past, DSM 7 is supposed to log in remarkably fast. But of course, on these modest specs, I'll be interested to see just how quick that is going to be. We've already tested prior to this, at least on my timeline, it's not too shabby, the DS220 Plus, the DS920 Plus, and the DS220J. This is the NAS which, in my opinion, shouldn't run DSM 7. The fact that it has it, even in this RC version, is still pretty impressive. And I know a number of you that are using the very modest Synology NASs are going to be very tempted to upgrade to DSM 7. So I hope this video either helps you or hinders you into whether you want to switch from DSM 6.2. So we've checked the login there. We can see the graphical user interface. Things are running quite well and clocked in there at the background. If we go to the control panel, we can sort of check through some of the options, see how quickly we can filter through them. But anyone that's ever used a DS120J will already know that the responsiveness of a 120J is nowhere near as quick as the other systems that we generally utilize. There's less memory for the system to creatively cache with, and a lot of the processes of DSM, it's a lot harder to hide them in the background or try to suspend programs on the fly, because you're already using a lot of the resources to do the general stuff. To spare resources to make intelligent background decisions like that, look at the conversion stuff happening there with those photos. Even though we've paused the process there, it's still registered. So it's worth bearing that in mind, that we may be being a tad unfair to this, given that even though we're trying not to use the indexing services, clearly some of those resources are being used. So do bear that in mind throughout the video here. We will be doing a follow-up with active insight on these systems as well. But yeah, we've got the whole thing sorted out there. I think the control panel runs well. We're going to the file station application here. At the end of this video, I will show some read-write activity, but it's worth highlighting that because this system is running a single hard drive, because it is a 1-bay NAS, you've really got to bear in mind that we're using a hard drive, and therefore read-write activity, even on an enterprise drive like this, we're using a 10 TB UltraStar drive, the simultaneous read-write, the IOPS there, the sort of stuff that a hard drive can max on, it's not going to be like an SSD. I could have cheated for this video and installed an SSD. That would have been unfair though. Also bear in mind I am using OBS, of course, which means that you might see the odd screen recording graphical hiccup there. So again, we can go into some of the file options there, and it's going to be nowhere near as quick and responsive as when we've done previous testing. Let's randomly pick a photo from Berlin there. Let's go through there. We've got some photos there, some stuff. We can go through them. But again, all quite responsive. I mean, again, I'm still very impressed that we're still seeing this kind of responsiveness here on a DS120J. I never would have thought a 120J could be this responsive, particularly in DSM 7, of course. If we come out of that there, we can make our way into some of the applications. And of course, one of the big ones, Synology Photos, the merger of Synology Moment and Photo Station. A lot of, it has to be said, the AI stuff has been pared away. I know in my other videos, I've made a point of using baseline setups. So I've intentionally not enabled some of the features such as people tagging. For example, when you go into the settings there, normally on other NASs, you can scroll down here and there's an option right here that is meant to say, do you want to enable people tagging? It is not available here. Those services are not available on the J. It's still able to play back those GIF files. You can see they're on screen. The fan on my laptop now is sort of ramping up a little bit there. Just remove the power. Hopefully that will get rid of some of the background noise for you people at home. Let's go ahead and find a random picture there. Who doesn't like pizza? Oh, it's still being indexed, so we'll have to go back a little further back. Oh no, the indexing at the background, it's still waiting to do a lot of that for us. So we're going to find a photo that's not being indexed by the system for us to look at. There we have, I believe that's a stuffing Christmas cake. Yum, yum. If we go in, a lot of the metadata there hasn't been fully scraped through. So again, Photo Station, it's very hard to judge this because, as mentioned, we have paused the indexing there. If I enabled that indexing, that would wipe out most of these resources right now in the video. But once it's done, then you would see some activity there. If we go for this Christmas party there with Dan the Man, we've mentioned him in other videos before. You've got to love a Christmas party, haven't you? And there we can find a little bit more information, but again, it hasn't managed to scrape that data there. Normally we would see a lot more photo information there. So we're not going to be too harsh on it. Again, if there's one big thing I want you guys to take from this video is be slightly restrained about what you expect DSM 7 to give you on a DS120J. Obviously, as mentioned, this is a system that hasn't completed its indexing, but as you can already tell, it's still the tiniest bit of lag all the way through it. The geolocational data there that's taken from the photos, that's all been done quite well there in the background. There's some of the photos from good old Taipei there. Man alive, I love that whole city. But again, don't expect it to be as fast and prompt as you would expect from other systems. If you're an existing 120J user, you'll know exactly what I mean. There's a little bit of patience needed, but things still get done quite well. And again, we can see a lot of that information and how much the system's giving us and how much that background data. There's some of it, you can see some of the indexing. When the indexing is done, there's plenty of information there to play with. Come on, Ron, wake up, mate. So we can come out of the Photo Station tool now, but we will be coming back into it in a little while. Audio Station, again, we can't really play many files here because of the YouTube bots. In my previous videos, I've decided to kind of challenge that a little bit. We'll go into some of the folders there, go into the music, play some of the computer game music in the hope that that's the sort of music that YouTube won't, pwn this video too much over. Let's go for Ocarina of Time there. Let's give ourselves a little bit of volume there. Again, not quite as responsive as we might like, but it is quite a small file. So next, remute it there. We want to check out some video. Let's go into Video Station that we've enabled on this NAS. And again, we do need a little bit of patience. Not loads, but definitely a little bit of patience while summarizing through some of these options. I'm going to let that carry on there. We're into Video Station. While it prepares that, we should have prepared the albums as well. As you can see, it's already got our movie collection there. It's got our TV collection there. I don't know if the home movies are added. Yes, they were. These are our Plex files there. And again, a number of you may have already noticed, by the way, that we have installed Plex Media Server. We will be doing a video on Plex Media Server on this NAS shortly. But if we go into movies there, you can see that the metadata scraping, I've not enabled it. If you go into the plugin settings, I've not connected those online database systems there. I'm just trying to use this as the base. We're going to the matrix playback there. We're going to play back that file. Again, we've muted the system so you're not going to hear anything. And we are accessing this file over the local area network. That's over 192. And we've got playback if we scroll forward. Again, tiniest pinch of a delay there, but it's still able to do it. Let's see what that's doing to the system resources, shall we? If we go back into the general performance, I'm sure what we're going to be seeing here is quite a dramatically large amount of resource consumption. We're seeing it down there. Go back into Video Station. We can have a little look. There's no transcode options here. We can't really play with these. The settings like we could before. This is quite a modest processor, this dual-core 800 megahertz processor, and a very small amount of memory there. But still, we can play back that file quite well. But look at that CPU utilization and the memory utilization. It's quite beastly there. Next, while we've still got some resources to hand, let's go into Surveillance Station and see how the system is going to be running these two camera feeds. In a moment, you're going to see the two cameras that we've connected to this surveillance system here. And these two camera feeds we're running, two in the office, the ones that we've used for the previous videos. We're seeing a delay there in things running. So we should have the two feeds at the top, one of the dome camera and one of the bullet camera. I'm just going to move away from the desk and I'm going to see how long it takes to catch up. Not too shabby. That delay was, I'd say, slightly less than maybe a second, maybe 2 seconds there. So that's still pretty good. I'm going to raise my hand there. 1, 2, yeah, that's pretty good. Not a bad smooth move there. And remember the 120J there, again, of course, utilization of the resources is going absolutely bananas. But it's still good that we've got that there. If we go into the timeline, of course, we can sequence through how much footage has been recorded. Not too much here. Because we did suspend a lot of the background services of this. There's the intros to the videos we were recording earlier on with the lighting rig there, so you already saw that at the top of the video. But again, we can access those there. Let's have a look while that's running if we want to go ahead and access the live camera feeds while it's still showing us the timeline from earlier. So again, I'm going to raise my hand again. 2, 3, yep. And we've got those running there. So again, even on this modest specification, fair play to it. Yes, it's using quite a lot of resources, but it's still doing a pretty darn good job. So we're going to end this video on some multifaceted utilization here. We're going to run that there. We can see that recorded footage. It's struggling a little bit there while the drive media is being accessed, that single drive. You can probably hear over the annoying seagulls, and Gerald the seagull, what a pain in the arse he is. You can probably hear the NAS in the background and that Ultra Star knocking around. And what I'm going to do to end this video is I'm going to now run lots of simultaneous services. So while that surveillance stuff is happening there in the background, I'm now going to run Video Station. I'm going to let it carry on from where it left off earlier on. So we're going to leave the movie playing. We're going to leave all of that surveillance stuff playing. We're going to open up Synology Photos. We're going to open up the audio track side of things. And of course, we're going to open up File Station. So right now, this is going to push this system hard. This is a lot for this system to have to deal with simultaneously. And with half a gig of memory being used to not only run DSM 7 on this DS120J, but on top of that, we are also running all of these services simultaneously. The movie running there, the camera footage running there. We're getting ready for the photo application there to boot in the background. We're just going to go ahead and run a song. Let's go for one. This song here, because it's 3 minutes. That's a decent little length. We're seeing delays there in the playback and the action of these things. But nonetheless, we've got playback. It's just getting ready to sequence that. You're seeing a delay there, of course. And then, why not? Let's just really kick this system in the shins. Let's go ahead and access the external USB drive here. Let's go ahead and copy that Plex data there. And this time we're going to move it into a new directory for us here. We're going to go straight into the Homes directory and paste that there. This is way too much for this system to be doing, but we're going to see how well it behaves and how well it reacts to the vast array of things we're asking it to do, from playing an audio file there to going through the photo application there. We're going to leave it to run and scroll some thumbnails. Going to let it scroll there. We're definitely seeing a delay there in what we're doing while it's struggling to keep up with what we're doing. Remember, not all the indexing's done. At the same time, we're still accessing that recorded footage in the cameras, and we're still watching the matrix there on another tab. And I gotta say, guys, I am super impressed with how the 120J is reacting to all of this. Again, if we weren't, as you can see from that icon there spinning in the background, the indexing is still ongoing, and the conversion and creating those thumbnails is still happening in real time. But we're still doing a vast amount of things here in the background with the system holding up. And I think for me, I still think maybe hold out if you're a 120J user, because I think DSM 7, I'd wait maybe a little longer, see if they optimize it. But if you're too excited to check it out, or you want to take advantage of Synology Photos and you just want to make sure you've got the latest thing, then I'm not going to say that DSM 7 is going to run bad on a 120J. I think it's going to do darn well indeed. I'm going to wrap things up here. I'm also going to let the system finish its indexing and all its creation of file types and thumbnails in the background, which will largely not brick the NAS, but it will certainly make the NAS run at a crawl. I'm going to end things there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. On my criteria, I've still got a few NASs still to go through every day this week, where we look at DSM 7 running on the latest generation of Synology NASs over the last 18 months. And I do hope you do check those out, whether it is that you own that NAS or you're thinking of buying that NAS and you just want to know how DSM 7 is going to run on different systems. These are going to be the series of videos for you, and I hope you enjoy them. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Click like if you enjoyed it, click subscribe to learn more, and I will see you next time.